Well, I want to say good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for our third session on using motivational interviewing during challenging times with Dr. Kathy Tomlin. My name is Steve Steiny. I am a program manager for the National Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center funded by SAMHSA. My colleague Kate Trams is also here. She will be assisting today with some of the technology and helping to monitor the chat box. We are going to attempt, I believe, to do some breakout rooms today. We have a large group, so we're going to try and break into smaller breakout rooms at some point when Dr. Tomlin is ready. And I'm honored to be here with all of you today. Dr. Kathy Tomlin, National Addiction Technology Transfer Center Senior Consultant, is with us again today to present today's interactive training session. Our co-presenter, Kevin Tomlin, also a consultant with our center, is not able to join us today due to illness. He sends his apologies and does plan to return to us next week for session 4. So I certainly am putting some good thoughts and prayers out to Kevin for his recovery. So I think I wanted to just make that short announcement, and then I'm going to review just a couple of slides before we get started. And I did ask earlier in the chat if anyone is willing, before Dr. Tomlin gets started, if there's anyone in the audience today that would be willing to get us started off on the right foot and do an opening blessing for us. So I saw Doc Foster in the audience there. Doc, I don't know if you'd be willing or up for doing that, or if there's another volunteer, but we'll circle back to that in a moment. Again, this is motivational interviewing during challenging times. This is actually, we've gone beyond just a 2-part series. This is session 3 and 4 next week. As I mentioned, we have with us Dr. Tomlin. Kevin Tomlin will join us next week. I'm Steve Steiny. Kate Trams is here, and also assisting is Cindy Sago with our prevention program here at the center. Next slide, please. So, see if I can get my full screen going here. So we are a national center and work with a variety of centers all around the country, the 10 regions in the U.S. and Alaska. This webinar is provided by the National American Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center. For some reason, Kate, I'm not seeing the bottom of that slide. I don't know if it's just my monitor. Or
that's okay. Yeah, sorry about that, Steve.
It's okay.
These are just regional maps of all of the regional centers for both the ATTC and PTTC that are sponsoring this event. But I'll go on here to the next slide for you, Steve.
Thank you. So again, Kate, I'm having trouble seeing this whole slide. I don't know why that is, but maybe.
Okay. Do you want me to talk through the rest of these slides?
Oh no, here it's back now. I've got it.
Okay.
Looks like it's just I'm just having trouble having it fit the window. So let me just, there we go. So again, the National American Indian Alaska Native Mental Health Technology Transfer Center is supported by a grant from CSAT and SAMHSA. And the content of this webinar is the creation of the presenters, and the opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, Health and Human Services, or the American Indian Alaska Native, ATTC, MHTTC, or PTTC. Next slide. We will be offering some CEUs. If you have already paid your one-time fee, you just need to make that request. We will be providing 2 continuing education units for today's training. You just need to email one of us here. I think we have Natasha Peterson listed here, but you can also contact myself, Kate, or anyone here at the center. Following the webinar today, we will be asking you to complete a short survey. We're going to put the survey in the chat box during the presentation or towards the end of the presentation, so you can complete that at the end of our presentation before we sign off for the day. But certainly, if you're not able to do that, we will make that available via email. We are obviously in a Zoom format. You can use the chat icon to communicate with the group and the facilitators, myself included. And we certainly will be using that to generate some discussion. You can just enter your message and then hit enter and it will show in the chat box. But be mindful of what you do put in the chat box, because we will be saving that, removing sensitive information, but we'll be saving the chat for later review.
We can skip that one.
Yes, this is just some information about Dr. Tomlin. She has been working in the field for many decades, and we're really happy to have her here. She's a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. We're very happy to have her here. I'm honored to call her a friend and a colleague, and we're honored to have her here today joining us. So I wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
I'm just having trouble with, there's something to be said about having one tiny screen working at home. It's quite a challenge. I just wanted to also say that we are going to be recording this session today for review in our archive later. So if you or a colleague are unable to see the entire broadcast today, you can review this in our YouTube archive webpage available. There's a link available on our website. As I said, you will be given a link to fill out an evaluation that will help us continue providing groups and sessions like this. You're currently muted. However, you can use the unmute feature at the bottom left portion of your screen. If you're not muted, please do so to help reduce background noise. Our next session is scheduled for June 11th, which is 1 week from today at 11 a.m. Central. And I think that was just about all I wanted to convey there. Dr. Tomlin is here with us. Kevin Tomlin is not able to join us. I wanted to also just briefly review sort of the objectives and what we hope to achieve today. So let me see if I can slide this out of the way so I can see the slide. Oh boy. Oh, it's funny. So today, as I said, today is the motivational interviewing session number 3. What we want to do, and I know someone in the chat box I noticed said something about missing sessions 1 and 2. That's okay. Dr. Tomlin will address that briefly. But if you miss sessions 1 and 2, that's okay. You can either review these at a later time, but you should be able to follow along quite well in sessions 3 and 4. The goals for sessions 3 and 4 are change talk and planning and demonstration of acknowledging and eliciting for change talk. And then we're hoping to generate, obviously, some interaction, comments, and questions. I know Dr. Tomlin doesn't want to just continue to lecture, although she's very good at that. We want to have this be an interactive format. The presentation goals, again, to sort of continue on these, we want to acknowledge Native people's concerns, review sessions 1 and 2, the motivational interviewing spirit. I just lost my slide there. Trying to get that. There we go. The motivational interviewing spirit, style, and engagement. We want to discuss focus, process of change, and introduce evocation, calling forth the process of change. Maybe utilize some practice tools with examples. I think Dr. Tomlin's going to be, I'm going to be pinch hitting for Kevin and doing some role playing with her in a little bit, so you'll get to see some of my acting skills. Listen and respond to others' needs, participants, and also get that chat box out of the way there. Oh boy. And also offer additional support as identified and needed. So I think with that, Dr. Tomlin, is there anything else we need to do before we have the blessing and then get started?
No, let's do our blessing.
Yes. Is there anyone that would be willing to open with a blessing this morning for the group? I know I put Doc Foster on the spot earlier. I just haven't heard from him.
Sure, Steve. I'm going to just share the Thanksgiving song. Almatakupi, Dan Foster in Montepelo is going to share. Okay. Wakataka toka shela, wakataka toka shela, Vila Maya Elohe, Vila Maya Elohe. We chose a niwa Maya Kuelo, Vila Maya. Nupa Wakancha Maya Elohe, Ila Maya Elohe. We chose a niwa Maya Kuelo, Ila Maya. Almataku, yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Foster, for that. Let's go ahead now. At this point, I'd like to turn the floor over to Dr. Tomlin.
Good morning, everybody. My way of teaching in person is to be interactive. So I'm doing my best to translate my want to be interactive on a virtual format. So you'll see me making feeble attempts to do that throughout these 2 sessions. So one of the ways I wanted to interact with you today is, for this particular session, is just to figure out what it is that would be helpful to you. So there's some questions that actually mirror motivational interviewing. The attempt was to mirror motivational interviewing. So take a moment and think about, you can even write it down if you prefer, what are your top 2 reasons, hopes, needs for attending this session today? Kate's gonna help us do a poll. So the polling question is on a scale from 0 to 10. What's your comfort level with your ability to demonstrate the first two processes of change, which were sessions 1 and 2, otherwise known as engagement and focus? And if you're new to MI, or you are familiar with MI and you just didn't have the opportunity to attend, or you don't know exactly what that is, you just score it on a low end, because we'll do a little bit of review. And then lastly, what is the most important thing you would like to get from attending the session today? So we have our goals, but I want to hear what you think and how you feel and what's important to you. And that would help me and Steve and Kate. That would help us frame what direction I'm going to go, or we're going to go to today, and also probably help me plan for next week. So let's take about 3 or 4 minutes to respond. And if you feel comfortable, go ahead and offer some comments in the chat box in terms of your response. We're doing the polling right now, so it's kind of a fun thing.
Yes, and sorry, Dr. Tomlin, the questions that are in there are actually ones Steve had mentioned to me before we started, and I think once I started the meeting, I wasn't able to change them to the one you mentioned in the slide. So hopefully these ones that we had can give us some of that information. But yeah, please also respond to those open-ended questions in the chat as well.
Can we add a question to the polling format?
I don't think I can add it to the polling format. So it would just have to be something we have people respond to in the chat.
Okay. Well, we can just get a number from people in the chat box. That'd be fine too.
Sorry about that, Doc. I was trying to plan ahead a little, and we should have waited.
Well, it's helpful information, so no worries. Yeah. The particular focus of sessions 3 and 4 are really for people. It's the more advanced and unique part of motivational interviewing. So I'm going to define the terms once we get the polling. Got 64% of the polling. Yeah, this is helpful. Okay. So another question I would have is, how many of you are ready for learning about change talk? I'm assuming you've had some training in motivational interviewing. Change talk is one of these unique aspects of motivational interviewing that can get a little complicated, but it's very helpful once you know how to use it. So how many of you have even heard the term change talk? Kind of a weird term in some respects. So let's see, where's my chat? How do I get to my chat?
Yeah, we're getting quite a few comments. You just have to go to the bottom of your screen there, Doc, and you'll see the chat box. It'll pop up right on your main screen there.
Yeah, let me look at the chat box. 7, okay, 7's pretty good with confidence level. Familiar with change talk. Boy, it's coming so fast.
I know it. I'm trying to keep up here. This is a great group, very vocal group. So appreciate everyone's comments. Looks like the skill range varies. That's good. So we've got a good mix there, and there's some interest in learning some of the motivational skills and techniques during this current pandemic that we are experiencing.
So Ricky Sullivan-Hurt, I do want to talk to you about the group, about what you're talking about hope for change. There are some factors definitely that influence whether someone will engage in a change process. And I did want to speak to that because we are in unprecedented times as well, in terms of being limited and from the pandemic, having limited resources, feeling cooped up, and then of course the social justice issues that our country is being confronted with right now, which actually, when you think about it on a global level, is creating change and hope for change. So this is a very, very interesting time for us to be using something like MI, which I personally believe would be a methodology and a way of addressing the social injustices that we're experiencing as globally. It's in our country, but also globally, that the outrage and the anger that people are experiencing from the social injustice from the police violence. So this is a way of being with people to help them and to hear. I can't tell you how many times on the news the biggest thing that I've heard from the leaders is just to listen and be with somebody. The police that have locked arms and marched with the protesters, it was listening and being with them. And that is the hallmark of motivational interviewing when you think about it. And so MI is also a way of listening. So it's not only being present with somebody in spirit style, but it's also a way of both verbally and non-verbally being with somebody in their time of trouble, and when hope seems hopefulness for change and improvement feels not so good. Anyway, that's my editorial comment. So thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to think about yourself in what would be helpful to you and what your experiences are. What I want to do is do a little bit of review, because I notice there's a lot of people that are new to this and haven't taken some MI training specifically. There we go. So I'm gonna back up to some previous slides so we can talk about that. There are 4 key processes of change in motivational interviewing: engagement, focus, evoking, and planning. Our first 2 sessions were around engagement and focusing, but I'm gonna backtrack and go over some of those key concepts. And then I'm going to move on to evoking, which is where change talk occurs. So let me back up and talk a little bit about focusing, finding a focus. And we'll talk about the role of giving information and advice and the role of agenda setting. So in motivational interviewing, finding a focus is really about what's the change goal for an MI intervention. So if you think about the different changes you have made in your life, the idea is to keep it simple and targeted. They use the word target a lot in motivational interviewing, meaning that you're not there to change a whole person's life, even though one small change could affect a whole person's life. For example, recovery, getting into recovery could affect every aspect of a person's life, but it's a big change. So we don't want to create a focus for people that's too big for them, because it can become overwhelming and it doesn't create hopefulness for people. sometimes it's prescribed because somebody's coming in for a mandated reason. They've got a mandate via the law, or their family, or an employer, or whatever, or they themselves mandate themselves into care. So part of what a focus process is really about, where am I going to focus the change goals so that I can use the tools to help them achieve success and to feel hopeful that things can get better for them. What gets in the way often is our ambivalence. I'm going to skip this and go to a review of the ambivalence. So ambivalence is, I feel two ways strongly about different choices I have. I both want to and I don't want to. There's different types of ambivalence. You'll see the different dogs. All right. Okay, something just happened with my headphones. Can you still hear me? I hope you can still hear me.
We can hear you, Doc.
Okay, I don't know what that was, but there's the approach, which is my two favorite approach examples are my two favorite types of ice cream. I want both. I can only have one scoop because I'm watching my diet and I have to figure out, well, which is my best. And some people actually, I know that's silly, but some people actually get stuck in that for a few seconds. There's the bad. Either way I go, it's not a choice I would make, but I got to pick one, going to jail or going to treatment. Approach avoidance is often the most difficult, meaning there's a part of me that wants to get treatment, but the closer I get to what it means to go to treatment, I figure, what the heck, I'll just go to jail and get it over with. But then when I get closer to going to jail, I think, oh no, I don't want to lose my freedom. I don't want a record. So I move back over to treatment, and it's that kind of push-pull. And then there's the double approach avoidance, which is the most difficult, where the push-pull is very, very strong on both ends. And an example would be, having two boyfriends or two girlfriends, and you have to pick one, or having a child, or moving for a job. Those are some double approach avoidance. When you're working with somebody with ambivalence, you do need to help them make a decision. And it has to be the best decision that they can choose, that they can feel they can accomplish. That sometimes can be hard because we have an agenda, particularly if you're working in a treatment program and your agenda is to have them complete the treatment program, and they're still struggling with whether they want to go to treatment. So there's a lot of push-pull in that one. Taking action, there's lots of ways that we can move, but sometimes our ambivalence lingers. So I just wanted to talk to you about a few ways of looking at processing ambivalence. One is to assess their readiness to change in the moment, and then to continue to assess it. We'll talk about that later. Another is to identify some self-compassion tools, and I did create a reference for you for self-compassion tools, which I did my research on for my dissertation a few years back, and I really enjoyed this. I think that it's learning how to have some compassion for yourself while you're having compassion for the other. I actually used the ask, may I be kind to myself? May I accept myself? May I forgive myself? May I be strong? May I be patient? And you can add on to this. And I actually ask clients to talk to themselves using those words as an activity in my work with them. And this was young adult opioid dependent patients. And that was one of their favorite activities. It was a mental homework. So they didn't have to have paper, pencil, a book to read. They just had to talk to themselves using the script throughout the week, in between the time I saw them and the next session. Overall, and these are young people who don't tend to want to do homework. They don't even like the word homework. But they actually love that activity. It's a meditative thinking exercise that helps them when they're feeling like stuck. Like, where do I go? What do I do? What's in my best interest? So teaching people how to be kind to themselves was a very helpful tool to help process someone's ambivalence. So let's just take a moment. This is ad-libbing now, but think about a dilemma you have in your life, an ambivalent dilemma, a dilemma where you have a difficult decision to make regarding a couple of different ways you could go. And if you don't have anything currently, think about a time in your past where you felt very ambivalent about a situation and you had to make a decision. So let's just take a moment, pause, and think about that situation. Did it involve other people? Is it current? Does it still linger in your life? Is it something that you have good days and bad days around? What were the pressures on you externally, and what happened to you internally when you think about that difficult, ambivalent, mixed feeling situation? Now think about that you've made a decision and it's painful. The decision was painful, but necessary. And ask yourself, while you're experiencing that emotion, may I be kind to myself? May I accept myself? May I forgive myself? May I be strong for myself? And may I be patient? Just take a moment and let that kind of sink in. Okay. So let me ask you, and we could do some chat discussion. What was that like for you to experience the pain of an ambivalent situation, and then to have some self-compassion for yourself while you're working through that issue? What's it like for you to experience that? And let's just have a discussion before I move on to a bunch of other stuff.
If you would like to
go to-
unmute and make a comment, that's fine.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, many folks are saying it's challenging, uncomfortable, mentally exhausting.
Correct. Yeah, the discomfort, mental exhaustion, sad but liberating, draining. Yeah, very difficult. What did I do to deserve this? All those tough feelings. And then when you apply the compassion to yourself, when you allow yourself to let the compassion in, what does it feel like to be kind to yourself?
Kathleen says it's easier to be kind and accepting of others, I think. That's what she meant. Or others. Use the raise hand feature too if you would like to make a comment unmuted. Use the raise hand feature and I can try and call upon you. Susan says, Abby Strong reminds me, it's hard to read, it reminds me to trust my own and not others' instincts. Kelly says, feels like a pressure release. Ricky Sullivan hurt. Compassion helps bolster thoughts that I made the right decision, and even if I didn't, it's okay. Only him.
And Melissa says it feels like grace and freedom. And I think that's a nice way of using nice words, actually, to honor yourself. Pressure release, fulfilling. So it's sometimes very hard for us to have that kind of self-compassion, and yet it is really what frees us from the pain and helps us to move forward and move on, even though there are times we're going to feel ambivalent about things. Maybe even the same ambivalent struggle comes up repeatedly. So when you accept yourself, you gain self-esteem. When you accept yourself, and let me play on that, Wanda. When you accept yourself, you actually free yourself up to make change. When you don't accept yourself, when you don't allow yourself some compassion, what happens is we get stuck there. So the more we can talk ourselves into accepting ourselves, the more freeing it becomes. The more freeing it becomes, the more acceptance we experience. The more acceptance we experience, the easier it is for us to look at other options. And that's the internal process of change on an individual level. It doesn't mean that things outside of us don't influence, they definitely do. And it can get uncomfortable to accept yourself because, those negative messages we get from ourselves or from what we learned from childhood, they come in and they creep in and they kind of do a number on us mentally. However, if we keep saying it, when they come in, if they do, may I be kind to myself, may I accept myself, etc. May I forgive myself for my failings. May I be strong and access my strengths, my assets, the things that I feel proud of, the things that affirm who I am. Those all contribute. And of certainly being patient. I'm probably an example of one of the most impatient people I've ever met when it's myself. But I'm very patient with other people. And so that's one of my ambivalent struggles is being super impatient with other people, but struggle with being patient with myself. So it really helps to have something super simple like, okay, be nice, be kind to yourself, and just having an alternative way of thinking about the struggle.
Doc Christie says, I've found that self-acceptance is a catalyst for organic positive changes. I've seen this in students as well.
Yeah.
Sean Bear says some pain is a result of lack of understanding, or if we truly understood, many pains would subside.
And Mark says, when I actually work on accepting myself and being compassionate and kind with myself, it can be very freeing, and I'm more open to experiencing feelings of peace and joy. And Vanessa echoes, couldn't agree more. Yeah. It's not, I'm not gonna pretend like this is easy, because it's not always easy, because we might think of ourselves as being too proudful or not having enough humility or being self-centered. And that's not what I'm talking about. Really, what I'm talking about is offering yourself the very same thing you'd want to offer to another person. It's hard to give what you don't have. So that's really what we're talking about when we talk about self-compassion. So I have found that this work with self-compassion, especially with Native American peoples, is key to healing. And it's important to not only have compassion, but have self-compassion. And to work through those demons that have carried us, through generations and currently, and then to be able to offer it to others. Okay, so I am going to move forward. But first, I got to get out of this. How do I get out of this? Kate, can you help me get out of this slide? Or how do I get out of the slide so I could go to another?
So I think you have to click back on your PowerPoint presentation, because sometimes
Yeah,
when you click on the chat or something, it doesn't, it's not selected, so it doesn't know you're trying to advance.
yeah. And how do I do that? Because I just shut down chat.
Okay, so if you,
Do I do stop share or?
no, you don't, you shouldn't have to do stop share, but if you can click on the slide, are you able to click on the slide that you're sharing?
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. There we go. So I wanted to talk to you about a tool that helps people make tough decisions. It's not, always, it's a tool. It's not the only tool. It's called agenda setting. And on this slide, you will see. Now, you can actually make up a handout. And in our handouts from Spirit of Communication, we can send you that handout packet if you want it. In this, there's a blank form that allows you to do agenda setting with your clients. So the first thing to do with an agenda setting is you ask permission to discuss what your agenda is. And then you explain that it's really, this is a tool that helps me figure out where my focus is going to be in terms of where that person wants to start their work with you. So this is a sample of a kind of agenda setting that you could use. So knowing your client, it could be sleep or diet or stress reduction, smoking, drugs, working out, exercise, reducing alcohol use. It could be a variety of things. And what you would do in this is you would pick one, say, back up, say diet or sleep. And then you actually would ask them a series of open-ended questions related to each one, like how important is it for you to address diet right now, in the immediate, in the here and now, or what bothers you about your sleep patterns right now that you would like to discuss with me now. One of the ones that I like to use is the I don't know. So say somebody comes to, has anyone had an I don't know experience with clients where you are working with them and you say, what brings you here today? And they say, I don't know. Or you pick one of these: stress, whichever, smoking, whatever, and you say, what would you like to change about that? And they say, I don't know. Has anyone had that experience?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty common. So when I get it, I don't know. I wonder if I can go to, let's see, how do I get to the whiteboard so I could type some things out?
When you're sharing, Kathy, I think it might be up at the top. There should be like a more, or like a button that says more, or with a few dots. And then I think it should
Oh,
be.
there it is.
Okay.
I see it. And I've got to the more, and how do I get to the whiteboard from that?
You might have to stop sharing your
Okay.
PowerPoint
Yeah,
and share that
fine.
instead.
Yeah, I don't think you can do them both.
Okay. It's not as user-friendly as I thought. Okay, let me get out. I don't want that there. Okay. Yeah, here's the whiteboard. Okay, so it could be, I don't know, I don't know. Or it could be, I don't know, I am not going to tell you. Sorry. Or it could be, I don't know, I haven't thought. S-O-G, thought about it. I don't know, I am afraid to say. And these are all in bubbles. If I had the actual agenda mapping format in, I'd just be putting in the bubbles. Or it could be, I don't know, and then it would be ... So basically, when you're doing an I don't know, you're putting them in the bubbles, and you're asking the client, which I don't know. So then the next question is, so these are all in the bubbles, and so you would ask, which of the I don't know fits for you. And here's the thing, it has to be in the moment right now. So that would be the question. Based on what they say, yeah, I'm already correcting my my own typing. Based on what they say, then, for example, say they pick, I don't know, I haven't thought about it. So they pick that one. Then your next response would be, would you be willing to talk to me and think about it right now? Generally, I get a yes on that. Generally, clients will say yes. And then you would do something like, and so say you get a yes, and then their next intervention would be, there's several things you could do. In fact, what would be your next intervention? I'll turn it over to the group. What would you say next? in this scenario. Would you be willing to talk to me about it right now? And then to the group, what might you say next? And can we do voice and chat at the same time?
So I
Sure.
guess I would say, what is it?
So I'm trying to get back to our exercise here before we're going to take a little bit of a break after this. So what would you say next? I think hope is a great place to start. Have you any hope that you can move forward? And I do want to address the what is it comment, because I think that's important and it's instructive in the sense that in order to do an agenda setting activity, you do need to know what you're targeting. So one of the participants said, well, we talked about smoking, diet. Those were examples of targeted behaviors. So you would just pick one of those. You would offer it to your client and you would just pick one of those. And they might say, let's just pick smoking, and say that's what your agency offers is stop smoking programs or substance abuse programs or working with depression problems. And you have an agenda, and it's the agency's agenda. And so when you say, well, this is what we do here at the program, we offer patches, we give you smoking education materials, we have you talk to the doctor and get a physical. And you say something like, where would you like to start? And their response is, I don't know. And so then you would work the it, I don't know, I haven't thought about stop smoking. Or I don't know, I haven't thought about stopping my alcohol use. Or I don't know, I haven't thought about managing my depression. So you would respond with that kind of focus, and you're getting the I don't know response. What would you say next? And that's really where we left off before I had my audio problems. So the issue is, what would you say next? Would you do a reflection? Would you ask another question? Would you affirm? Those are the ors. Open-ended, affirm, reflect, or would you summarize? Summarize is a little more challenging, but you could say something like, well, when you first came in here, we talked about you stopping smoking, and somebody thought, a family member thought it was a good idea because they're worried about your health. What do you think would be helpful by being here? Or your family is really important to you, and you're willing to come here even though you do not know what you need to do, etc. So that's kind of where we left off. And I do see some comments coming in. Anything else? And then we're going to take about a 5-minute break in about a minute. And then we'll come back and then we're going to move on to introducing the idea of change talk and sustain talk in the latter half. It's normal that you're confused at this moment. Thank you for being here today. That's a very nice reflection. If you don't know, how about a guess? That's nice too. If you had a magic wand, let's see, I start. Yeah, I'm not expecting you to change anything if you're not ready. Let's talk about readiness. Or if you had a magic wand to get you where you want to be without having to walk through the tough spots. What would your life look like if you were a non-smoker? Might be a simpler way of doing that. You know, a lot of people struggle with smoking and stopping smoking. You're not alone, which would help with the hopefulness. Yeah. It's hard to make a mistake using motivational interviewing when done well, when done in spirit and style. Absolutely true. And how painful it can be for someone who is struggling with showing up but not not really wanting to talk about something or haven't thought about talking about something. Yeah, why do you think other people are worried about your smoking? You guys have got it for the most part. There's several different ways you can approach this. My comments before our break is, remember that it's how you say the next thing, not exactly what you say. It's really how you say it, and that's the review around spirit and style, that you say it in a non-judgmental, accepting, affirming manner, which then allows that person to feel free to talk to you about something that could be difficult to talk about. So spirit and style, coupled with the particularly, change occurs with a specific focus, not changing your whole life. For those of you who have actually been successful at doing a change, such as stopping smoking, eventually, I'm imagining that it does change your life in other ways. However, when you're first starting, it's just stopping smoking is really the goal, and how it affects other aspects of your life is sort of what happens later. So that's why we want to keep it really focused, and something that isn't saying you need to change everything you do. When somebody's recovering from substance abuse particularly, or from mental health issues, it feels like for them overwhelming. And one of the things that agenda setting does and focusing does is it reduces that feeling of being overwhelmed, and therefore provides maybe hopefulness that they can accomplish even a small change, which is reinforcing. What I'd like to do now is, let's just take a quick break. I'm going to set my phone on a 5-minute break. I have 10:08. I'm going to come back at around 10:13. And then I'm going to move on to the specifics around introducing the concept of change talk today, and then doing a demonstration and working with that after our break.
That sounds great, Doc. Appreciate it, and thanks everyone for bearing with us through the technical issue. We'll be back
Yeah.
live, and we'll continue.
Be back in 5.
I'm just going to stay on this as Dr. Dan. I'm going to share just a couple of things that I was real fortunate. I did my doctorate at Baylor in the 70s down in Texas, and they were doing research with space shuttle mission at Houston, and so we got the contract, but it was top secret, so we didn't publish any of what we found. What was interesting to me is because we wanted men and women that would fly into space, and we figured they might be sleep deprived over a period of several days. We wanted to know if they could bring, they were pilots, all of these were pilots. Would they be astronauts? Could they bring them back, land it, so we could use a reusable type shuttle? And what would happen after days or even weeks of sleep deprivation? Would they become psychotic? Where I'm going with this, so we didn't publish it, it was all up secret and all that. It normalized mental illness, if that's the right word. I was working as a psych tech at the same time at the VA hospital, and I found that the astronauts thought very similarly to my clients at the VA hospital. And we're not a very rational being, and most of the time we're on autopilot. And by the way, the astronauts did become overtly psychotic with visual and auditory hallucinations, but they were still able to land a possible shuttle with the setup that they had. This was before we had Google, and before we had the computers that we have today. It was a very complex thing. But it helped me realize that I'm talking, you're thinking 10 to 12 times as fast. And you might think that you're rational, but you're not. And if you have a life partner, you know you're not. My wife often tells me, you don't get it, do you? And I'm glad I don't, because he's upset and I'm not. But clearly I don't get it. And that's my point, is it's normal for us to be ambivalent about most everything. It's normal for us we don't have a committee. We have multiple voices in our head talking. And it's not just ambivalence, that's called normal humanity. And under stress, it gets more and more chaotic. And that's normal. So thanks for letting me say a few words.
I appreciate your words. It's very normal. Well, I don't know where in the world we got that it wasn't. I think part of it is, what's not normal is to have that inner conflict and to live with it and not address it. I mean, because you don't find peace that way. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I've got my mute button on.
We can hear you just fine, crystal clear.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. This technology thing is throwing me for a loop. But yeah, the pain of the conflict, the internal conflict or the external conflict, it's really what MI does is help us to resolve it and to live with it. So not to take it away, because as you said, you're going to have it and it's part of life, but does it have to control your life, you know, so that you live in a state of conflict with yourself and you don't make any movement because of it. So that's really what MI tries to address, is that pain of being in conflict with yourself over ambivalent situations and worry, you know, that you're making a wrong choice. When in reality, you're probably doing the best you can do, given the situations that you're in. So I appreciate your comment. Change is ambivalence. That's just the way it is, yet progress can be made. Is it 10:13 already? Yeah, it is. So
Well, 12:13 for some of us. So.
That's right. That's right. Good reminder. I live in an alternate universe. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. For those of you who took a break, welcome back. For those of you who listened to our discussion, thank you for that. I want to talk about something that actually is kind of fun. I know that sounds kind of silly talking about a counseling practice that's fun when you're trying to learn something new, but it actually, my experience of learning MI was really, wow, what a relief, you know, that I didn't have to feel so responsible for the outcome of what happens with my clients, but that I could still be a regular counselor. I could use my positive counseling skills to get them through a difficult time. So you know, I learned it a long time ago, and it just blew my mind basically. And I thought, wow, I wish I had known this a long time ago. So what we want to focus on is, I want to show you this message from Dr. Miller, and I found this in preparation for today. And I thought, wow, this is what Change Talk and working MI is about. In truth, we do not get to make life choices for our clients, but we can talk with them in a way that evokes their own natural motivations to be healthy and whole. I know some of you have had MI training, or maybe been looked at Dr. Miller and his work, or been to a training with him. This is one of the primary belief systems around MI. We can be with somebody in a way that evokes their own natural motivations to be healthy and whole. And that's what we call a fundamental belief in the practice of MI is we have the belief that people will naturally gravitate towards health and a desire to be whole if given an opportunity to talk with somebody who will listen to them. Let's work with some concepts of this is in MI, this is considered the more advanced piece of doing the practice. So let's talk about that. So I wanted to define some of the terms because they're not natural terms, but evoking, it's kind of a fancy word from my perspective for just calling forth a person's own wisdom about themselves. So that's what evoking means to me, is I'm looking for their wisdom to call forth their own natural motivations to be healthy and whole. And I'm looking for that when I work with somebody. The term change talk the original term was called self-motivational statement. And that's instructive in the sense, it's kind of a mouthful, but it's really what you say to yourself that motivates yourself towards a particular behavioral outcome. So an example is, I need to reduce my drinking to keep my marriage, or I want to keep my job so I will stop using, or I would like to be healthier so maybe I will change my diet and stop smoking so much. Those are examples of what we call preparatory change talk. We'll talk about, next session, we're going to talk about the need for commitment. But those are statements that you might hear from somebody that might indicate that they might be open to change. It doesn't necessarily indicate that they will change. It just indicates they're open to change. This idea of sustained talk is language that a person might say to themselves or to you that provides them for reasons to stay the same, not make a change. So if I just continue to drink with my friends and not around my family, I won't have to give up my beer. So it's keeping the status quo. Or my tardiness is not that bad. Other people I work with are worse than me. Or I can still smoke as much as I want. It really is not that bad. Besides, my grandmother, father smoked their whole life with no big problem. So here's some of the terms that we're going to talk about. Okay, I'd like to conduct a brief exercise. Have you ever felt the pain of a client that touched you deeply? You feel connected to them and their pain and thought that offering some suggestions to ease their discomfort might help. You were surprised to find that their reaction was ... So I'd like you to think about a time where you did feel the pain of your client and you had a solution for them and you wanted to share it. And you did share it. And what happened when you shared it? What was their reaction? And let's say they're ambivalent, that this is an ambivalent client. What happened when you shared that solution with your client? What did they say? What did they do? What was their reaction? Okay, what do people notice for those of you, we did a little bit in the breakout room, we had some technological challenges, but what do people hear, or what was your experience?
Through all of you, John will live on. John does live on.
In our breakout room, we talked about some of the things that, the reactions that occur and how to respond to the reactions that occur when you try to problem solve for the client. So that was a pretty interesting conversation.
We can't hear you, Doc.
Better?
Sex with power, wealth.
Sierra, you're fun. I'd like to know you better. Thanks for the affirmations.
I need to have everyone else mute themselves if you're not sharing. We're getting a lot of background noise.
And Kathy, don't unmute yourself on the computer. You need to unmute yourself on the phone because now you're using your phone as your sound. Okay, all right, I think now you're unmuted, I believe.
I'm unmuted on my phone.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, good. All right. We need another half an hour for my faux pas for text today. Maybe we'll add a half an hour in the next session. So I heard somebody say something about the chat room and what they were learning. Could you repeat that so we don't lose it? Whoever said that?
In the chat that I was in, we were talking about the students' reactions to us trying to problem solve for them, and then talked about how we would respond to those different reactions.
Yeah. And what happens when you try to solve someone's ambivalence for them?
Well, they sometimes politely agree with you and then don't do anything that they have told you they were going to do.
Yeah.
So they come back with, it doesn't work. It's my favorite. And then sometimes they get really ticked off, which to me is a sign that they're comfortable enough with me and there's enough of a relationship for them to tell me to go sack it, And so that's a little encouraging, even though the anger isn't. And I don't, anybody else jump in, because past that I don't remember now.
Yeah. I see a yeah, but
So in the one we were in, Tammy and I talked a little bit just about the reactions that we've come across with clients in this context. And I mentioned that with one client I had a reaction, it manifested as anger, but he was very frustrated because he was also on the page regarding connection and stuff, where he was looking forward to the connection and stuff, and there was hope established there. And then when that disconnect happened, he got frustrated with that.
right.
Like I said, manifested anger. So just reestablishing that connection and hearing his values and where he was coming from just helped in him taking the lead of that journey. So
Yeah, very common, and good point that it could be a rupture in the relationship with somebody that you have to mend. Yeah. Compliance is a hard one for me when the client shakes their head yes and gives the impression that they're going to take your advice, and then you find out that actually things got worse for them. And it's normal for us to want to do the knee jerk and want to say to them, but well, if you had done what I told you to do, things would have gone that direction. But we all know that does not motivate change, and that the change has to come from within. And it's very tempting with our training and our background and our life experience to want to give them a solution. And what I have found is if I would just put myself aside but keep with the desire to be helpful, and I use more of an MI approach, I would go to them and say, I want to be helpful, and I know that sometimes the best solutions, and often the best solutions, are the ones that you come up with yourself. So let's talk about what you've already thought about in terms of making this change. What options have you thought about? Are you ready to talk about it? Do you want to talk about it? Can we talk about it? So asking that permission, and then moving forward to when you've thought about making this change, what have you thought about? When you've thought about not making this change, what have you thought about? And then have that type of
Nothing.
conversation. Huh? Yeah.
Think about nothing.
Okay.
So I
What
guess,
we want, yeah, go ahead.
or group
Nicole.
updates. Are you still on group updates? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
okay. So in our group, we had talked about that when we are offering suggestions, it's often perceived as you're trying to tell me what to do, just like everybody else, always trying to tell me what to do, and they might walk out the door, you might lose them, and that it's better to. That's what we talked about, is why that's better to get them to come up with the ideas or the reasons instead of us telling.
Yeah, often the things we tell them they've already thought about. So that can be irritating. Good point. Anybody else before we move on? I'm open.
Well, I also asked them how they feel. How have you felt when you think about making this change, and how have you felt when you think about not making this change? That's kind of important too.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are good processing ambivalence kinds of interactions. What we want to do, let's see, what time do you guys have? I have to convert. Yeah, it's about 20 minutes to, let's see, 12:30, 12:40 in the Central Time Zone. In Pacific, I'm in Pacific. It's about 10:37. So I do want to get in this role play that we're going to do. So, and this is a way for us to look at can you hear change talk. So what we're going to do, and then we'll come back at the other side of this and finish up our day, is we're going to do a demonstration. Steve and I are going to do a demonstration and role play using MI to evoke, to engage and evoke and focus. We're going to try and tie these different processes of change together. While you're hearing or listening to us or seeing us, ask yourself or think about, could you hear the change talk or hear the sustain talk? What thoughts did you have in terms of how you might respond to it? What MI skills would you have used and for what purpose? So think about those things, and we're going to go ahead and do our demonstration. So let's do it. Are you ready, Steve?
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm trying to get the visual up here. I don't know. I'm having mechanical problems today.
Which visual are you trying to get up?
I've got you. I can see you.
Yeah.
All right. So, Stephen, I'm going to be the practitioner and Steve's going to be the client.
Yeah.
And this is our first session. And I don't know what Steve is going to do, just so you know. So this is cold for me and for him. But he's going to role play a client. So Steve, do you want to introduce your client to us? Or wait a minute,
Yeah,
I'll back up.
Yeah.
Just let's say our environment is an outpatient treatment environment for substance use disorder. So this is our first meeting. So Steve, welcome to our clinic. What brings you here today?
Second OWI.
A second DWI?
Yeah, second DUI.
Okay. All right. So what else brings you here? You have 2 DWIs. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? Why here?
Well, I have to come and see you today. It's a mandate, so I have to be here. I don't have a choice.
So you're feeling a lot of external pressure to be
Yes.
here,
Yes.
and you're not happy about it.
No, not really.
Yeah.
I'm angry, but I'm also really embarrassed and upset.
You're angry you have to go through this again, and you're upset with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. You've been through this before.
Yeah, just last year. So this is
Recent.
recently. This isn't good. I'm in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. There's a lot of pressure on you.
Yes.
Well, since you have to be here, or you're feeling pressure to be here, what are your expectations for being here today?
I have to get this evaluation done, and I have to decide at this point if I'm going to try and make some changes. I stopped drinking for a while after the first one, but I really don't want to stop drinking at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I want to try and make it work.
You'd like to continue drinking, but not get into trouble.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I enjoy about drinking. There's just some consequences that I don't like.
Yeah, you don't enjoy the consequences, but you like the positives for what
Yes.
drinking offers to you.
Yes, and I'm not sure what to do at this point because I might lose my job and my family's upset, and I've drank all my life, all my adult life, and I don't even know what that would look like if I stopped drinking and changed.
Mm-hmm. It's just a brand new idea, really. And also, how would I be? Who am I without having that outlet?
Yeah, all my friends drink. My job is very demanding, and all my coworkers drink. I don't know. I would just be completely alone.
That's a sad feeling, huh? To feel that
It is.
kind of aloneness. Yeah, that's difficult and painful.
Yes.
Well, since you're here and you're struggling with what you want to do, let's talk about it. Are you open to talking about your options?
I think so. I think I need to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Well, the first thing to say is whatever you decide to do is your choice. I'm not here to mandate to you how you need to resolve the situation you're in. I'm really here to be a sounding board, to offer some services that you can choose or not. And we can talk about what works best for you. That's the most important thing, is that it's your choice and that we can go at whatever pace feels comfortable to you.
I appreciate that. It's the first person that's sort of asked me, what I want to try and accomplish. And I've got a lot of other people telling me what I need to do or not do. So
yeah. Well, we offer program and services here, but and I know probably the state has requirements of you. Can you tell me what the state expects out of you from a DUI program or DWI program?
I have to do an evaluation and treatment and pay fines, and I'm going to lose my license, and I have some mandatory jail time. So I've got a lot of things to sort through, and I'm not sure if I can do this by myself.
There's a part of you that really wants to get it over with, do everything the state requires of you, and just get it done. And it's not looking attractive to have to go through it all. What sounds like, again,
Right. And I'm angry
Yeah.
at myself for making the same mistake. I swore this would never happen again, and it did.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm ready to stop drinking forever either. I really like drinking,
Yeah.
like I said, but
Yeah.
I can't keep going through this.
Right. And that kind of situation where you have to give up something you value that's important to you, and you contrast it with other things that are important to you, like your family and your job, and not being in trouble, that can be a difficult dilemma, for sure.
Yeah.
There is hope for you in the sense that you're here. So you showed up today. So there's, my guess is there's some hope for you that you can get through this. And let's just talk about, making a decision about giving up drinking your whole life. That's a personal decision. And I know the state's probably going to require so many days of, you demonstrate so many days of abstinence or whatever to get through their requirement. But as far as I am concerned, as a person providing care for you, I have no agenda around you giving up drinking for the rest of your life. That's a personal decision for you. I would like to support you in getting, the legal requirements taken care of. But a decision to give up drinking for the rest of your life is not something I can decide for you. And so with that in mind, I'd like to work with you to be able to help you resolve the legal. So you've got the personal side and you've got the legal side. And kind of they're happening at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I stayed sober once for about 4 months, and
yeah,
wasn't
so you
that
know
bad.
you can do it. Yeah, you can do it. It wasn't terrible. It met the requirements that you needed.
Yes.
And you went back to some old habits that got you into trouble again, but those can be resolved in terms if you choose to continue drinking after you're done with your legal stuff. We can talk about what makes sense to you in terms of staying out of trouble.
Yeah, maybe I could just cut back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's several options. You could cut back. You could stay sober to get through the legal. You could, once your legal is done, you could go back to your other patterns. There's several different options that you could try. But let's talk about now. So let's think about in the next month or so, next 30 days, what would you like to have happen?
Well, I've got to enroll in one of your programs, whatever you recommend, and I need to stay sober, at least in the short term. I know that.
Well, and more importantly, you know how to do it. You've done it before.
I think so.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah. So with your permission, I'll describe some programs for you, and I will not recommend a program to you. I will walk you through your options for a program to resolve your legal issues. And then you can pick a program that you feel would work the best for you that would resolve your legal issues. And then while we're getting that taken care of, we can also work on what might happen for you personally once the legal thing is resolved. What you are learning, what you experience, how you're feeling, what you're thinking. Those are, it's like a concurrent process happening at the same time. What do you think about that idea or that plan?
I like it. I don't want to, but I know I have to. You think I'm an alcoholic?
I don't use those kind of labels because, it can kind of put somebody back, feel bad about themselves. I don't know if you're an alcoholic or not. What I do hear from you today is that your drinking has gotten you into trouble and you're mad at yourself for that because you promised yourself it wouldn't happen again.
Yes.
So something's going on with the drinking that's causing some negative consequences. And calling yourself a name like alcoholic or whatever, I don't know if that is helpful. It sounds like it actually might hurt your self-esteem, or it might hurt how you see yourself. What's more important is that you look at, maybe if you're open and willing, how the drinking is causing you the negative. What's happening there? Take some time to reflect on that. You've been through a program before, so we don't want to have you just go through rotely, like a robot.
Yeah.
Something that you already know. But maybe talking to somebody or being in a group, whichever your preference is, that can help you figure this out, because something's not working with the drinking.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is.
I think you're right. And I'm starting to think about what I need to do differently and what that would look like. And I'm just a little bit concerned about my ability to follow through.
Sure. You might need some help, some ideas, some support, maybe a plan to move forward.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you for allowing me to have this conversation with you right now. And let's make another time where we can continue our conversation. And my best hope for you is, that you'll be successful. You've done it before. But more importantly, that we get some strategies for you through the program or through your own life experience that works for you, for your future as well as your present. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, I'm coming out of character now.
Okay. All right. So we have a little bit of time, but let's talk about what you hear. Did you hear the change talk? Did you hear the sustain talk, and what your reflections are? Let's just take a few moments and talk about it. Anybody, feel free.
I think it was great that you gave him some time to own it and didn't force your agenda on him. That was really, really impactful. And I think when we do that, I don't like to say we empower people. People empower themselves, and we just give them information and how to do that. And I think that example was great. Great job, guys. Thank you.
That was a great job. You could hear him change while you essentially interviewed him. And I bet even playing a role, he felt that he was changing, listening to your questions. The only thing I might have done differently, and I could be wrong, is when he said, "Do you think I'm an alcoholic?" I think I would have said, "Do you think you're an alcoholic?"
Yes, that's a possibility, yeah. That'd have been a good question to ask.
Yeah, and following up on that, I think one of the things I always kind of try to remember stigmatization in these different things as well. And by sort of withdrawing from that, it might have led him to feel stigmatized if, in fact, in the future, he does get a diagnosis of alcohol dependence. And he may not want to discuss that with me in the future if he gets that. So I think I would probably do similar, like, okay, so what would it mean for you if you were an alcoholic? What does that mean to you? So is it just the not ability to drink, or is there something else with that is keeping him from becoming motivated for real change, which usually I have to say in my experience it is.
Yeah. Yeah, there's different ways of approaching that question. I appreciate the comments. Steve, talk to us. What was your experience?
Yeah, I definitely felt my defenses sort of slipping away as soon as you weren't going to try and prescribe, a cure or a fix. Once I knew you weren't going to try and change me or tell me what to do, the feeling was palpable of just being able to relax a little bit. And I tried to sort of do that by changing my posture a bit and removing my hat and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But I really do like the question about the question that I asked, because I would have patients often ask me, do you think I'm an addict, or do you think I'm an alcoholic? And that really was something that I would be very careful with, and sort of reflect it back to them, or ask them that question. Do you think you are? What does that mean to you? And I was going to go into my father was an alcoholic, and his father, and go into that whole, because there's probably more to that. There's something I've already attached a stigma to that term. So yeah, I think the audience was right on in picking up on that. I've already made a negative connection to that terminology. Through my own experiences, but I was definitely ambivalent. I clearly want to continue drinking in some respect, and I also referenced the controlled drinking, or the harm reduction sort of possibility. And I think it was good for me to hear from you that I had some options to consider.
Yeah, my thinking was to instill hope, because I was feeling your feelings of despair. And that's kind of why I went towards the hope. All of your comments, though, are valid. So I chose to go with the despair that I was feeling from you, and wanting, especially because I can see you, so that helps, because you wore the hat and your head was down. So I was attending to the nonverbal communication and that feeling of hopelessness and despair that I felt from you. And that's really, in our limited time together, that's really where that's my style too. My style is to be more in the nonverbal, empathic reflection area. However, with that said, all of the suggestions and things I might do later on, but once the the feeling of empowering somebody and addressing their despair with themselves.
Yeah.
Offering hope to the hopeless is a tough one, isn't it? Because we feel the hopelessness from people, and we could get trapped by it ourselves as empathic people. So yeah, that's a tough one. And I remember when I was first learning MI, I had to really work hard not to let that hopelessness overtake me personally while I was listening to it. Well, we got 2 minutes left, guys, and I have thoroughly enjoyed. Even though I had all this techno problems, I apologize so much for that. I feel very embarrassed by it, but even with that, I appreciate so much, Steve, the role play. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the chat comments and the breakout rooms. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, come back next week. We'll keep this conversation going.
Yes, we're going to have Kevin. Kevin Tomlin has promised he'll be with us. Hopefully, he'll be fully recovered, and we will continue this dialogue. Really wonderful to have so many people on. I want to just thank you all, and if we might have someone take us out with just a short blessing or prayer, we'll conclude today. If you haven't had a chance to fill out your survey, please do so, or Kate or I will contact you with that survey link via email. And feel free to email me with other questions. Happy to respond. Anyone willing to take us out today and close the training?
I actually say something weekly about my clients. Can I maybe say it? Okay. I start out my Mondays, God bless my patients or clients because they are the ones motivating me to do this work. And so I kind of trench that to you guys because God bless you guys. Thank you for motivating me to continue
Thank you.
helping others.
Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you, Lisa.
Have a good week, everyone.
Yeah,
Or
we'll
a
see you
good
next.
rest of
That
your
was
day.
lovely, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week, 11 Central, and we'll continue our conversation. Thanks again, everyone. Have a safe week and take care.
Mhm.